Hi all, welcome to today's webinar. vegetablesWA is holding this webinar on COVID-19 business continuity planning, and we're really lucky to have an expert with us who can talk us through some of the details that growers are going to need to manage their business going forward into the future. So we're very fortunate to have Brooke Arnott, who is the founder and managing director of the Small Business Lounge. So welcome Brooke, and we look forward to learning a whole range of insights from you today.
Thank you, John, and thank you to vegetablesWA for inviting us to be able to share some information that's happening now in terms of COVID-19 and what's possibly available to your business. So just before I start, this is just general information, so you really need to make sure that you look at your business and seek the right advice from professionals, because it will be a case-by-case situation. And most of the information that I'll run through today has been provided by the ATO and also our governing body, which is the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. So just wanted to make that very clear, and everything is changing constantly. So we are having updates from the ATO nearly daily. So we've obviously got this for today, but next week could be totally different. So just also be aware of that. So first of all, welcome to the Small Business Lounge. Obviously we're doing this over video, but normally we're located in Mount Hawthorn in Perth, and we work with clients, including vegetablesWA, all around Australia, and we're helping a lot of people right now just try and understand their businesses and how they can work through these times of, I guess, not knowing what's going to happen next month or next week. So today I'm just going to run through with you how we can look at the different stimulus packages that are available for you, and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have sent through via email. So first of all, I'm just going to touch on the first stimulus package that was released by the government, and this is to do with the instant asset write-off. So this has now been increased from 30,000 to 150,000. So a lot of businesses that are in a position are taking advantage of this to be buying their other bigger equipment or machinery or things like that for their business. So basically, immediately it's a write-off for the cost of each asset that costs less than the threshold. It's an instant asset write-off, can be used for both new and second-hand assets. There are some exclusions, and limits that do apply. So we do recommend that you actually contact your tax accountant just to make sure before you make the purchase that it is going to apply for the instant asset write-off. And with in terms of cars for your business, there is a limit with that, which is the 57,581 for the 2019 and 2020 tax year. So strongly recommend before you make any large purchases that you contact your tax accountant just to make sure that you're qualified for that. This is for businesses, again, with the turnover below 500 million. And this is the depreciation rules, with the following assets as well. So these are the ones that will be excluded from the instant asset write-off. So these are the ones that will be depreciated under the 50%. But again, going through this is great to obviously have the conversation with your tax accountant, because this is the area that they specialise in. Okay, so the next stimulus package that has become available is boosting cash flow for employers. Now, there was a lot of media that came out about this when it first came out, where businesses thought all of a sudden they're going to get this big cash injection back into their bank account. Now, for some businesses that may be the case, but there are a lot of businesses out there that possibly have a running ATO debt with the ATO, or have quite a large BAS to pay in the March quarter. So it is going to be different for everyone. We are still waiting with the ATO to confirm how that payment is going to hit people's possible bank accounts. But from what we can hear at the moment is the money will be put into your integrated client account. So yeah, just making sure that not everyone's going to possibly getting up to the 100K that they're saying. So I'm just going to run through an example of how this is going to work. So basically, this is an example of a monthly PAYG, which is your employee tax, lodgement of the 10K. So each month they pay approximately $10,000 PAYG tax to the ATO. So basically what will happen is for this particular client, that 100% of the PAYG withholding will be credited to the integrated client account for the March quarter. So the way they work it for monthly lodgements is that they will take March's lodgement figure and multiply it by 3, so it'll be 300%. So just say, for example, your PAYG in January was, 8,000, in February it was 9,000, but in March it was 10,000. You would then get 30,000 of the cash stimulus for that period. There's a minimum of 10,000 paid to employers. Even if your PAYG was only 2,000, say, for the month or quarter, you'll still get a minimum of 10,000. And it's up to a maximum of 50,000 for the first cash stimulus there boost. So in July, there's another secondary payment that will kick in, and I've got a graph on the next screen which will explain that a little bit better. So in July, there's 25% of your total that you paid in March. So for this client, it was 50,000. 25% of that will be credited each month from June to September as the second part of the cash stimulus as well. The amount to be credited either on the date that the BAS is due or the lodgement date from there. So let's just have a quick look at this graph. So this will hopefully make it be a little bit more clearer. So basically we're looking again at the 10K PAYG lodgement for March. So when this client lodges their BAS in March, they would have already lodged their January PAYG and their February PAYG. So in March, they'll be lodging their March PAYG with their GST for the quarter, if they're a quarterly lodger for GST. So basically what will happen is that they will first, cash flow boost will be $30,000, which is 3 times the $10,000 March figure. And then if they continue with the same type of payroll moving forward, they will also receive $10,000 in May and June towards their PAYG. And then basically in July, they'll also receive the $10,000 plus 25% of the first payment. So I hope that makes sense. I know it can be a little bit confusing, so more than happy to either talk one-on-one with people, but basically this is just a scenario to help you sort of understand as possibly what you will receive after your BAS is lodged for this quarter.
And Brooke, just
yes.
a question: is it confirmed that October is the final date that we can expect a payment?
At this stage, yes.
Yeah,
but John, there's things changing daily all the time, so it could, depending on what happens, it could extend on. But at this stage, we're looking at a 6-month plan basically, and that's it. And there are cases where it's going to be different for people. We have heard that even if you do have an ATO debt, and you're in a payment plan with the ATO, that possibly after your March BAS is paid, you may receive a refund. It won't necessarily have to come off that debt, but again, we are still waiting for confirmation on that. So the next week is going to be quite critical in terms of finding out how this is actually going to be handled as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So the next stimulus package also available is for apprentices. So if you have an apprentice or a trainee and you've got less than 20 employees, 50% of their wage for 9-month period, and that's from backdated to January to September, will be in an instalment, which is like paying 3 instalments, up to 7K from up to 7K to a total maximum of 21Ks over that 3 times with that. They've also released funding for severely affected regions that have been hit by COVID-19. And this is a case-by-case scenario. So I haven't actually heard of anyone actually reaching out to the government yet for this regional payment, but we do have the website on the slide there if you want to have a look at that and see if you have been hit your area. So the classification for that is quite broad, but yeah, there's some information there that you can have a look at. The ATO are also being really friendly right now. So if you are having problems or if your cash flow is really tight, please talk to the ATO. If you've got a BAS agent, go through them, or if you need help, obviously contact us. But basically, we are working with the ATO on deferring payments for a lot of our clients if they need it, and putting them on payment plans and things like that so that they can get through this period. Obviously, you still need to pay it, but at least it'll give you a bit of a breathing space to hopefully you can keep trading, or whatever your business is doing, you can keep going through this time. Also, if you normally receive possibly like a refund on your BAS, you can move to monthly BAS lodgements now. So that might be beneficial for your business if you want to receive the refund quicker instead of waiting to the end of the quarter. So that's an option as well, which can either be done by your BAS agent or tax agent, or calling the ATO yourself. Also, there's the PAYG instalment. So this is income tax, which is usually for the business owner or the director. And sometimes there's businesses that have made a profit from the previous year will need to make an instalment with their BAS. Now, if this is the case, you can ask to have that varied, so you don't actually have to pay that. So basically, because what the government is doing is that they're asking for you to prepay your tax. So if you're in that situation as well, we can vary that to nil, so you don't have to prepay your tax at this time. Just bearing in mind, obviously, you still will need to pay the tax. It just means it's not going to come out. We have to go through your BAS for this quarter or next quarter. And also remitting a lot of penalties and interest as well. So as I said, the ATO is being really nice at the moment and helping a lot of businesses. So please don't sit there and think there's no help available to you. There is, and we can work through it. So basically, it's just a matter of having the conversations and communicating your situation. And that's again, the low interest payment plans that they have available. We've got some businesses that I've heard of that have gone into 5-year payment plans with the ATO. And that might not be a good viable situation for you, but just as an example of what is available out there to keep making sure that people can survive through here. In regards to superannuation for your employees, you need to pay that. Okay, so you can't. There's no sort of leniency on not paying superannuation. So you can go into a payment plan for your BAS and PAYG, or whatever you've got outstanding with the ATO, but you must pay your employee superannuation on time. If your business pays payroll tax in WA, so at the moment the payroll tax, if it is between 1 million and 4 million, will receive a one-off grant of 17,500, and that's expected to be paid in July. So there's still a bit of time before that comes. And yeah, so also, again, contact the state office as well if you're having problems in terms of paying your payroll tax, because they're also deferring payments as well till July. So yeah, as I said, again, just having that communication is key at the moment. This has been talked about a lot, the Small Business Guarantee Scheme. So basically the government announced that they would back 50% of the borrowing with the banks. So they'll support up to 40 billion of lending to SMEs. But unfortunately, it's still in the process of being finalised, as far as I know, as of this date now. So we don't have any clear indications yet that the banks are actually doing this line of credit. I did speak to one bank today and they said hopefully by Monday, Tuesday, they're going to have more information. But I'll run through basically what it's going to look like for businesses.
Brooke, is this a state government initiative or a federal one?
This is a federal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
This one's federal. So, and apparently it's going to be up to the 30th of September, and it's a low interest loan. And it's more like a line of credit, really. So basically it's like an overdraft, and it'll be up to 250,000 over 3 years. And you don't start paying interest until you start drawing down on the funds for that. So we don't know yet what you'll need to provide to the banks to actually access this money. We haven't had that information to us yet. and hopefully we will in the next, as I said, next week it's going to be busy, I think. So yeah, just make sure that you keep an eye out for that. But all I can strongly recommend is that you keep, have your bookkeeping up to date, and also back with the stimulus packages, you need to make sure that you've got all your BAS lodgements up to date, and also your tax returns done as well that are due. So for any of you that have outstanding lodgements with the ATO, etc., just make sure that you get those up to date so that you're eligible for any of the payments that are coming through as well. Okay, so that's the funding. So just, yeah, and some banks I think are going to participate and some are not. So I just recommend, if you have a relationship with your bank manager or already, it's probably good to reach out to them if you think that you might want to apply for this funding. Okay, and so the next, the third stimulus package that's been released is the JobKeeper payment, which is a hot topic right now. I think everyone's talking about it. I've certainly had a number of conversations with a lot of our clients. So it's there to assist businesses in need to keep their staff employed during this COVID-19 time. So it starts from the 30th of March 2020. And at this stage ends on the 27th of September. So it's basically for a 6-month period to make sure that you are, keeping your staff employed if you can. So there's a lot of businesses that are opting in now for April, but you don't, if your business hasn't had the downturn or is not eligible at the moment, you can still opt in later months. It just means that you'll just get the payment up to the end of September for that. Okay, so who is eligible for the JobKeeper payment? So you have to be an Australian business or non-for-profit organisation who's carried business on the 1st of March 2020. You have to have a registered ABN, that the entity satisfies a decline in turnover test, which I'll run through what they're looking at now to be eligible for that. And you need to have employed at least one employee of the March 2020. Or in saying that though, there is more information that has come out now about sole traders, trust partnerships, which I'll run through as well, to make sure that they also can qualify for the JobKeeper if you weren't actually an employee in the business.
Great.
Okay, so to be eligible, your business has to have faced a 30% fall in turnover, and that's for businesses turning over less than 1 billion, and a 50% fall in turnover for businesses over 1 billion. For non-for-profit organisations, except for universities and schools, they have to have a 15% turnover. So people are asking, how am I going to compare this for my business? So the ATO have announced that you can compare it to a number of different reports, but basically what we need to look at is, for example, for March, so we looked at your report for March for the GST turnover for 2020, and there was a 30% decrease from March 2019, and you've looked at everything and there's definitely been a decline, then more than 30%, then you can apply for the JobKeeper payment. You can also look at forecasting. So if you have a look at April, for example, and you know that April is going to definitely be a 30% decrease in turnover from April 2019, when you can justify that, then you can also apply. There's going to be also case-by-case situations where possibly you have had a lot of growth, for example, from last year, and now your turnover is grown, but you've also employed a lot more people. So those cases will be put through to the Treasurer and sort of gone case-by-case situation.
Brooke,
so, yes.
I think it's possibly a design flaw with the way that the program's been designed, but comparing 1 March or a forecast of April in horticulture where we've got really seasonal revenue, it might be that it's hard for us to demonstrate that 30% decline because we're not typically selling anything in March this year, or in fact March last year. Is there any flexibility around how we can average this over a longer period than perhaps a month or two?
Yeah, there is. So you can even look at a quarter, or you can look at 6 months, for example, as well. As long as you've got clear working papers to show that your business has been affected by COVID-19 by 30%, then the ATO, and this is obviously just general what we're hearing, and it's case-by-case situation, we'll look at your case and say, yep, okay, you've proven that, you've got the work papers there, you've signed your declaration, yeah, you qualify for it. So definitely, if you've had the downturn, definitely enrol and go through the process to apply for the
Right, thanks, Brooke.
payment if you've had that decrease. So, and also, if you normally lodge your BAS quarterly, you know, you don't necessarily have to prove quarterly reports. You can do monthly, quarterly, or I've heard of some people looking at doing 6-month reports comparison. So you just need to have that proof that you've been affected, basically. Okay, so as a business, you've realised that you've had the 30% decrease, and so now you want to know which employees are eligible for the JobKeeper payment. So it's all permanent, full-time, part-time employees who are employed as of the 1st of March 2020, and that includes any employees that are possibly have been stood down due to forced closure, or you know, you might have want to rehire someone because previously you couldn't afford and you possibly made them redundant. So there's different ways that you can bring them back in so that they can actually get the JobKeeper payment. It also applies to casual employees working on a regular basis or systematic basis for at least 12 months. So this is a bit difficult because you may have just had a casual working for you for 6 months, and unfortunately, if they do at this stage, they do not qualify for the JobKeeper payment. They need to be at least 16 years of age, and they obviously need to be an Australian resident or hold like the appropriate permanent visa as well. So yeah, there's lots of I guess people ringing us saying, oh, but what about this person, you know, they've only worked for me for 3 months, or I employed them on the 5th of March, do they qualify? And unfortunately, no, they don't. So they've got really tight rules and regulation, as I said at this stage, about who can actually be eligible for the JobKeeper payment. So they can only be in receipt of the JobKeeper payment from one employee. So if you've got someone that works for multiple, from one employer. So if they've got people that work for different employers, and they can only get the JobKeeper payment once as well. And if your employees receive the JobKeeper payment, this may affect their eligibility for payments from Services Australia, previously Centrelink, as they must report their JobKeeper payment as income. So just making sure that they notify if they are receiving any other payments, that they notify Services Australia as well. So sole traders are now eligible for the JobKeeper payment as well. So with that, they have to register it online for it, and same, a form will need to be put forward and have proof that they've also had the 30% decrease in their turnover revenue.
Brooke, is that the same with partnerships?
Yes, yep. So yeah, so other businesses in forms of companies, trusts or partnerships can also qualify for the JobKeeper payments where the business owner is actively engaged in the business, or the director is actively engaged in the business. So they have to be working in some part of the business to qualify for the JobKeeper payment. Just so everyone knows as well, this is limited to one entitlement for each entity. So if you've got a partnership, only one person can receive the JobKeeper payment, and you have to nominate that one person that's going to receive the JobKeeper payment. So there's going to be more information coming out for businesses, and I know the ATO actually put something out yesterday or late yesterday in terms of that. So I'm sure we can provide some links, John, as well to the ATO reference so that people can click on those as well and get the information that they need.
Thanks, Brooke. That'd be great.
Okay, so as a business, once you qualify for the JobKeeper payment, so you've looked at everything, looked at all your figures, and you need to, you've presented that, the ATO have agreed, then you don't need to keep retesting over the next 6 months. So once you get it, you get it. Even if there's and this is as of today, it could change, but at the moment they're saying once you register for it, you get it. But there will be monthly reporting that does need to go through to the ATO, and that is for them to monitor how businesses are tracking. It's not to change your payment, okay? So, and if you employ new people as well from that time, they're not going to qualify for the payment because they would have had to be employed on the 1st of March. So businesses can register for the JobKeeper in the upcoming months of the 30% downturn. So that's what I was saying before, is that you don't necessarily have to register for April. So if you are thinking, okay, April's going to be good, May's going to be okay, but come June, we're really going to be affected. So you would then register for that in May, for June. But just so that you know as well, and I think I'll go through this as well shortly, is that you need to actually pay the JobKeeper payment first, and it's actually reimbursed by the ATO. So there's a bit of a issue there sometimes for businesses with cash flow because they have to pay it up front. So strong recommendation is make sure your bookkeeping is up to date and review and forecast regularly to see if your business qualifies for the JobKeeper payment. Because you have to pay the JobKeeper payment first, you don't want to miss out and all of a sudden be hit later on and realising that, oh, actually, you know what, it's next month's not going to be great for us, or the following quarter or something like that. So, you know, we do a lot of forecasting for our clients and scenario planning, and it's really important that you understand, and most of you probably do, but just having those figures and just seeing how things may change over the coming months is just really critical. Okay, so what is the process? You should pay a minimum of $1,500 before tax to each eligible employee each fortnight starting 30th of March to the 12th of April 2020 to claim the payment for that fortnight. So that's the very first payment. Excuse me. If you are not, you know, if you're not going to be eligible for April, you don't need to worry about this. You'll just be doing that, say, in May or June. For the first 2 fortnights in April 2020, the ATO will accept your claim if the full payment of $3,000 before tax is paid to each eligible employee before the end of April. So what that means for April is that if you're unsure if you're going to qualify for the JobKeeper payment, you can hold off and wait and make sure, as long as you've paid your employees before the end of April, then you'll get that back in May. So if your pay cycle is less frequent than fortnightly, so just say you pay your employees monthly, you can still process that as normal, just as long as you pay the $3,000 before tax to each employee every 4 weeks. So just as long as you're qualifying for that in that period, then you'll still be eligible to get the rebate on the JobKeeper payment. Same with weekly, you can still pay weekly, just as long as that amount is paid. Okay, so what you need to do. So as of Monday, the 20th of April, you can enrol for the JobKeeper payment if you feel your business is going to be eligible. This is going to be done online, and the ATO is recommending that you do it through your BAS agent or tax agent, or if you're happy to, you can do it yourself online. They are strongly recommending that you do partner with someone, a tax or a professional, to make sure that everything's done correctly. They are saying that you must register by the end of April to claim for April 2020. So if you are affected this month, you need to make sure that that's done before the end of the month. You need to list all eligible employees that were employed with you from the 1st of March. If you opt into the JobKeeper, now I've highlighted if, because you don't have to apply for the JobKeeper payment. So it's not mandatory to do so, but they are encouraging businesses that do have the 30% down to or more to do that. And you must pay all eligible employees. You can't pick and choose who you're going to pay. Everyone needs to be paid that is eligible for the JobKeeper payment. You also need to provide employees with an employee declaration form for them to sign and for them to return to you as well. So we can also include that link, John, as well for that.
Yeah, that was the next question. Thanks, Brooke.
Yeah, so we can include that, so you've got that as well for everyone. Then to apply for the claim for the JobKeeper payment, as I said, recommend that you do that by a tax professional, BAS agent professional, and that's to be done at the moment. This could change, as I said, anytime, between the 4th of May and the 31st of May. So, but we want to sort of make sure that we can try and get those done as quickly as possible so that the money can be put back into the employer's bank account. So what you need to do is ensure that you have made that correct payment to your eligible employees before the end of April to claim for April. You need to make sure that your accounting software is set up. So if you've got employees, you should be registered for single touch payroll because this is how they're going to monitor the JobKeeper payment. So if you're not, possibly get in touch with us and we can help you out with that. But what you need to do with that is set it up correctly in your accounting software. And a lot of the accounting softwares are working on that now to make sure that that's done properly, so that the ATO know that you've actually paid your employees correctly, because that's going to how they're going to monitor it as well. So once you've done that, on the application, we submit the report to the ATO, and we have to have the working papers available and stored and the declaration signed to make sure that we have proof and evidence that you are, or that the employer is eligible for the JobKeeper payment for their employees. Now, I've heard that the ATO are going to audit and review a lot of the documentation when this is over, or when COVID-19 is over. So you need to make sure that you have everything done correctly, because the last thing you want is to have to pay this back at any time. So, and the payments here will come direct from the ATO into your business bank account. Okay, so superannuation, this is a few little questions that we've had come up. So superannuation does not need, excuse me, does not need to be paid on the JobKeeper top-up amount. So, for example, if you've got an employee that's being paid $300 per fortnight normally, so that's their normal pay, but is now topped up by the JobKeeper by additional $1,200, because the minimum amount you can have to pay them is $1,500. You don't need to pay the superannuation on the $1,200. So I hope that does that make sense, John? I hope I'm like on thing. So basically, if they normally.
Yeah, I'm not an expert at these things. Can you run through this one more time for us, Brooke?
Yes, sure. I'm just sorry. I just have a quick little sip of water. Sorry, I've just got a little.
No worries at all.
Okay, so if your employee normally works, just say 5 hours a week, for example, and their normal salary is $300 a week, and they are now getting the JobKeeper payment, they are entitled to the extra $1,200, but you don't need to pay superannuation on that.
Right.
Only on the $300.
Cool. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So if the employee would not have been working except for the support of the JobKeeper scheme, then even if they are working, superannuation does not have to apply to the payment to the employee of the $1,500. If they are paid more than $1,500, then the superannuation applies to the extra amounts. If the employee is being paid their normal salary, then the superannuation needs to be paid on the full amount, even if the employer is receiving the JobKeeper payment. So as I said, there's lots of different questions that are coming up about this. So it's more a case-by-case situation, but possibly, get in contact with your payroll person to make sure that it's all set up correctly for your employees so that you're not paying anything extra or you're not paying them incorrectly. Okay, so the JobKeeper payment is GST free. Okay, so just a couple of things that you need to know there. The JobKeeper payment is a reimbursement and cannot be paid in advance. There was some talk going around that they were possibly going to do that, but that is apparently not the case anymore. If an employee has previously stood down after the 1st of March, you can re-engage them, and you must pay the minimum of $1,500 per fortnight. All eligible employees must be paid the minimum amount, the fortnight, even if it's higher than their normal wage. Excuse me, sorry, I've just got a little tickle in my throat. And the companies are working now with the payroll to make sure that it's going to be set up correctly for you.
Great. So that's the likes of Xero and other programs?
Yeah, MYB and QuickBooks and things, yeah.
Great.
Okay. Excuse me. So, very important. Businesses are required to keep in-depth records of all transactions and payments relating to the JobKeeper payment. And there are some pretty hefty consequences if this is not done. So basically make sure that you've got all the documentation there. And they're saying there's going to be big penalties for defrauding this payment as well, because we have heard of some businesses trying to figure out ways how they can get it. But at the end of the day, it's really there for the businesses that really need it. So make sure you've got all your documentation right. And yeah, just make sure, because they're saying it's going to be some like really hefty penalties and repayments and stuff that will need to go back. So just make sure you're covered for that. Just a little thing about keeping your war chest. I talked about this previously with other webinars that I've done, is like, how can you maximise what's happening right now? So definitely looking at, you know, maximising any of the stimulus packages that are available to you and understanding them properly. Forecasting as much as you can, looking at your cash flow, you know, different scenario plannings, that sort of thing. Considering, if you need to, delaying tax payments to the ATO. Obviously, this is an individual case-by-case situation, but if you need to do that. Also chase up, obviously, any outstanding accounts that you can. And look at, you know, if there's any equipment or anything that you can sell as well, to look at that. As I said, also contact your banks and look at the new guaranteed line of credit that's going to be coming out, that's going to be available, to see if you qualify for that as well, and just kind of keep things moving along. You know, the government want the economy to keep going through this time, so they are trying to help all businesses as much as possible. So please reach out and just get as much help as you can for the moment, and try and keep as much cash as well available too. So that's probably about it for me in terms of information, John, but I know there are probably a couple of questions or anything that you might want to ask as well that have come through.
Yeah, for sure, Brooke. So growers will be aware that we reached out to them to see if they had any questions in advance of this webinar, and we had about 5 questions that come through. So I might just run through those one by one and see what you've got to say. So the first question from a grower was, what's the difference between job seeker and JobKeeper when you're running a family business? In a scenario where few generations are in business together, might you be eligible for one or both of the payments?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so JobKeeper is basically a payment that would be paid to an employee. So even if a family member is an employee of the business, the family business, and they've been employed since the 1st of March and they qualify under what we went through before as an eligible employee, they would be entitled, and the business has had the downturn, they would be entitled to the JobKeeper. The job seeker payment is done through Services Australia, so it's a different payment, and basically it's like it's being paid sort of like the old Centrelink, and they're for people that have lost their jobs or, you know, not have got any income. So it's best to try and look at what you are eligible for. So if they're part of your family business and they're employed by you and then the JobKeeper would be the one that they would go for.
Great. I think this second question, you might have touched on a bit of it throughout the webinar already, but the question was, what paperwork do you have to complete, and is there language assistance available to non-English speakers?
Sure. So as far as we're aware at the moment, in terms of the paperwork, they're looking at the GST turnover figure, and we're still waiting for clarification whether that's going to be on a cash basis or accrual basis, and how that's going to be reported. So I think as of Monday, John, we're going to have more information as to what's required, but at the moment we're looking at things possibly like, you know, your GST report that you would run for one period compared to another, and looking at that, what we call the G1 figure, which is what is put in the first BAS line, or possibly a profit and loss as well, particularly for the sole traders. So yeah, as on Monday, I think we'll have a bit more information as to what working papers we're going to need to prove that. And in terms of the language barriers, I think it would just be contacting the ATO, and I think they have different interpreters as well available. So that would probably be the best way, as you would normally do with the ATO side of things.
Great, thank you. And I think you've probably, again, preempted the next question as well, but I'll ask it. When reviewing accounting figures, what numbers should we be looking at in our reports? Turnover, revenue, etc.? What online systems are, with online accounting systems, are there any settings that you recommend we change?
Sure. In terms of your accounting software, it's business as usual, except for the payroll side of things. We need to set up the JobKeeper separately with some different codes as well. So, and it depends on how you're going to be paying your employees. So we've been looking at that as an individual case-by-case basis. But definitely have an accounting software set up. You need your single touch payroll sorted. Making sure that, as you said, staying on top of your bookkeeping. It's a great time to automate, if you can, your business. So we've been helping a lot of businesses that possibly were doing a lot of manual type of bookkeeping before, to helping them automate now, and having real live data, John, so that they can, look at forecast forward or look at what's happening right now in real time rather than waiting for everything to be data entered in.
Yeah. So the next question is, are you affected by being on a cash basis? Do we need to make changes to our accounting system?
Yeah, no, it's not going to make any difference. So, as I said before, just keep everything the same as what you were doing. Just, my only suggestion is just to make sure it's all updated.
Cool. And the final question, is there insurance relief available? Can you defer insurance payments? Is there any important information in the insurance space? What's likely to happen with business insurance premiums?
This is a good one, John, and it's a good question. And at the moment, there's been nothing said in terms of any stimulus about insurance. But I would strongly recommend that you contact your insurance broker at the moment and see what's available to you, because if you're having a downturn, possibly they can, particularly with workers' compensation, if you've had to lay off or get rid of half of your employees, for example, and you don't qualify for the JobKeeper, they may be able to do some adjustments there. So strongly recommend that you have that conversation. And I'm finding now, John, that a lot of people are talking a lot more and having conversations and reaching out to professionals that are in their area just to get the right advice, because it's not a time to be guessing and trying to make those sorts of decisions on your own, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we've dealt with an insurance broker at vegetablesWA, and I know through working with them, growers have significantly reduced their premiums historically. So we can certainly provide you with some contact details, which I guess, in wrapping up the webinar, and thanks so much for your time, Brooke. I guess the final point I'd ask is, what are your contact details should growers wish to see what the Small Business Lounge might be able to do for them?
Sure. Feel free to email me, Brooke, BROOKE, at thesmallbusinesslounge.com.au. Also, if you want to have a look on our website, which is thesmallbusinesslounge.com.au, and I'm sure we can put my details in the email as well. And as I said, feel free to reach out. We are helping, a lot of clients in terms of the JobKeeper payment, automating their businesses, payroll, bookkeeping, advisory, all those types of things. So, more than happy to help.
Great. Brooke, thanks again for your time today. That's really critically important information, and we appreciate you making it available to us the way you have.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me.